Good evening. Over the past few weeks, English cricket has been shaken up by allegations of racism from former Yorkshire cricketer Azeem Rafiq. There have been allegations that there was institutional racism that was practiced in Yorkshire, the club that he played for. And not just that, this happened over a period of time, so much so that Azeem Rafiq believed that his career was shortened due to racism, that he had to battle mental struggles because of that. Also, the fact that he would never let his son anywhere near the game. So there was a lot of it that came out in that harrowing testimony by Azeem Rafiq in front of a UK parliamentary committee. And Monty Panesar now joins me, former England cricketer. For his perspective on this, Monty, thank you so much and for taking the time out to talk to us. Let me begin by asking you this then. I'm sure you watched that testimony, and like many others, you would have been absolutely disturbed by it. I wanted to ask you, as a former England player, somebody who's seen it all, and also someone who's part of the minority group that Azeem Rafiq was talking about, what were your initial thoughts? What were you feeling at that time?
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show. When I listened to his, parliamentary hearing yesterday, it was a complete, I think eye-opener and also heartbreaking account, to see that someone like Azeem Rafiq was in such pain, such agony throughout his, county career. And, the bravery, that he showed, throughout that hearing to actually tell the rest of the world about his experiences and how he tried to fit in, but unfortunately he felt always, an outsider as a professional cricketer.
But how disturbed were you when he talked about ritual humiliation, things like he was forced down, pinned down by his teammates at the age of 15 and made to drink alcohol, which him being a Muslim was against his religion. The P word was being thrown around in the dressing room. Things like, you lot sit near the toilets. I don't know. I've got to ask you this. At some point, did you feel like, my goodness, all of this has been happening? And I want to know what have been your personal experiences in English cricket?
Yeah, I haven't faced any discrimination. No one has ever used the P word, against me. And in fact, when I played cricket for England, everyone in England absolutely, adored me, loved me. When I played batting, bowling or fielding, they enjoyed every moment, and even in the dressing room, I was very well welcomed and embraced and encouraged, to be that attacking spinner, celebrate my wickets, be who I am. So, when Azeem Rafiq talked about these things, it was quite surprising, some of the stories coming out. And it's something that I think the ECB are taking these allegations very seriously, and they will do a thorough investigation to find out, where did it all go wrong for Azeem Rafiq.
Yeah, the problem though was also how there was no reaction from Yorkshire or from the ECB till you saw public opinion, the public mood starting to change. I think it's when it sort of got traction is when they decided their heads should roll, because this has been going on for a while, and there was an investigation that was being done by Yorkshire. The investigation found that he was in fact harassed in the club, and yet they said that there was going to be no disciplinary action against anybody. It was only later when then they knew they had to do something, was when the real action was taken.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the way this case was handled by Yorkshire was, was a complete mess. Let's be honest. I think the people who were governing this, or the advice that they were given, there were people involved who possibly were, deeply incompetent in actually, doing their internal investigations. And during yesterday in the parliamentary hearing, even the DCMS, committee were questioning the internal structures of how they were conducting their investigations. And possibly it was slightly circular, where even, the likes of Roger Hutton, who was the chairman that came in, it was his law company that was going to do, the investigation. And they felt that, slightly more independent organizations should have been involved. And this is something, going forward, I'm sure, all county teams, the ECB will review their structure, review their systems. And we recently just seen, the MCC, they've partnered up with Show Racism the Red Card, which is an anti-racist, organization in terms of educating, organizations about offensive behavior, microaggressions. And I'm an ambassador, of that charity. And that is something that where Julian Knight, kind of after concluding that possibly going, into the future, maybe in cricket, we may need an anti-racist, organization just to help with any matters that come forward.
Yeah. In the beginning of that testimony, one of the things that Azeem Rafiq said was that how he was in denial for the longest time. And I think, and I want to sort of ask you about this, that to just pass any of these racist remarks like the P word or some of the other things that was being used in the dressing room sometimes comes off as banter, or people say, it's banter, but it is more than that. I mean, you said that you've not faced it personally, but have you seen others, who've had to deal with this? Anybody from the Asian origin who've had to deal with something like this in your dressing room or in the English setup?
I haven't, to be honest, I haven't, seen anything, like what Azeem Rafiq is talking about. And generally what we say within the county structure that, Yorkshire was probably one of the, the last counties where, if you're born in Yorkshire, if you're born outside of Yorkshire, then you're allowed to play. And even overseas players, you look at the neighbouring county, the likes of, in the 90s, we had Wazzy Makram. Then we had in the 70s, Clive Lloyd there. And Northamptonshire, we had Bishan Singh Bedi, then Curtly Ambrose, Anil Kumble, So you look at that as a youngster, you're going to look up to someone, that you think, well, where can I make it? People are going to be, as a British Asian community up north, you're going to think, well, Lancashire's a better place for me, because they've had, people from, the subcontinent and the West Indies as overseas players, and other counties around. So, possibly there needs to be some sort of, internal investigation just to think how can they embrace more inclusivity and, diversity at Yorkshire.
Also talking about now this name calling, I know that a lot of players have come out and apologized, though Michael Vaughan still insists and denies any of the allegations that Azeem Rafiq has made against him. In fact, Adil Rashid has come out and talked about and said that I was part of that conversation and I can back what Azeem Rafiq is saying. But Michael Vaughan continues to deny it. There are others. The one that I want to bring your attention to is the apology by Jack Brooks. And why I want to talk about it is because there's an Indian player and his name is involved in it, Cheteshwar Pujara, who was called Steve in Yorkshire, as because from the way I see it is that Jack Brooks and the other players in the Yorkshire setup could not be bothered to even learn how to pronounce Cheteshwar Pujara's name. And I know that this may not come out as overtly racist, but the fact that you've tried to give him an Anglo-Saxon name is something that is exclusionary. You are not trying to be inclusive. And I think Cheteshwar Pujara in an interview later on had even said that I prefer to be called Cheteshwar, but it seems like they can't pronounce my name, so it's okay, whatever they want to call me. But when I see it now, and when you see it sitting there, what do you make of this whole incident? And do you think that that was racist of him?
Well, look, in my opinion, right, that sometimes, people don't understand, maybe the lines of banter and a racist term. Now, the P word is a complete, racist term. And the word Steve or even Kevin is a more of a derogative term that you're kind of like dehumanizing a person. And I think sometimes in a dressing room. Also, the third factor is in a dressing room environment, there is that camaraderie, that team spirit where everyone enjoys the banter that goes amongst each other. Let's not forget that either. And I'm sure there's other players, around the county system who've enjoyed, the jokes, the banter that goes around, which is a really unique place, when you play cricket. Some of the wins you have for your country, your county, and the banter that flies around is what, connects the team together. But going forward, I think there may have to be some, protocols like this is a racist term, this is banter, because if any of the players now who've been mentioned, you kind of like they've apologized. I think it would be completely unfair if you kind of ban them. Maybe give them some education, and with education, people have a better awareness. But before, banter does fly around amongst the dressing room, and everyone does enjoy the sort of camaraderie, team spirit that there is. So I think, any of these county players, maybe give a bit more education, but I think, banning them will be completely inappropriate and unnecessary.
So when you're saying that some of it is banter, but my next question then is, Monty, how does one differentiate between banter and racism? Because this is a slippery slope and you don't know when you cross the line, because, Cheteshwar Pujara may see this to be racist, may not like it, but he obviously does not even want to make a big deal about it. Also for someone like an Azeem Rafiq who's trying to fit in, at the end of the day, cricket is a team game. A lot of it is, the camaraderie that players have in the dressing room, as and you've spoken about. But at what point do you say, look, this is not banter, because you want to fit in, but at the same time, you don't want to be the troublemaker. You also don't want to come across as the victim.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. You don't want to be that person who, you think, oh, if I feel something which is inappropriate, I'll be deemed as a troublemaker, and then suddenly I don't play, I don't get a contract, and I don't have a professional career. And I think that's something needs to be reviewed. And it's about team culture. This is about internal organizations. Every team needs to think about, we can't make it the norm, that these terms are being flied around in terms of banter, and we need to have boundaries set. And that's something probably will get reviewed by the ECB, and protocols will be taken place, like we have corruption sort of education at the start of every, county season. Same thing will have, racial sort of behavioral, programs taken place, where people have a better understanding, and then they'll be accountable. If it's on the dressing room board and it's written there saying this is a banter, this is a racist term, then players are aware, and then they're accountable after that. So I think something like that would probably be helpful, and at least we have a clear boundary of what's banter and what's not.
So what you're saying is that there's no point in banning the players who've come out and who've apologized or who've been named by Azeem Rafiq, but to have a sort of, have sort of guideline or some kind of education being given to players in the counties, just to make sure that they're more educated about it. Is that what you're saying, Monty?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the PCA over the last year are developing, an online program. They're working very closely with the head of diversity of PFA and trying to get more of a better outline. And actually, this is more about, creating cultural camps where people can have slightly deeper conversations about, what's their interpretation, of a racist term or banter. When you're young and you're at school, academy level, everyone's, when you're just coming into the game, you don't really know, what is offensive and what's inappropriate. And something like that, more of, having these sort of talks, I think will really help and clarify and bring some clarity to actually what can be offensive to someone and what is actually, good for team spirit and camaraderie.
If somebody in the team hypothetically gave you a name, which was an Anglo-Saxon name because they thought they couldn't pronounce your name, would you find that offensive?
I already already have an Anglo-Saxon name, so that's Monty.
That's
So I don't know. I remember when I played Bedfordshire under 12s. My name is, Madhusudan, but they asked me, "Do you have a nickname?" Because it is quite long to pronounce, and it's as common in cricket. Everyone has a nickname. It's easier to, it builds team spirit as well. And if it's a name that is, personable, from friendship, then
yeah.
yeah, that's fine. So that's why people used to call me Monty, and Monty is, everyone knows me by Monty now, don't they?
Yeah, they do. The last question then, Monty, before I let you go. Do you, after listening to Azeem Rafiq and having not experienced this, as you say, do you feel lucky, given that Azeem talks of how rife it is, how rampant it is, how institutional it is, not just in Yorkshire, he says, up and down county circuit. Do you feel lucky not to have gone through it at all?
Yeah, look, I feel very lucky. From a young age, I had a mentor, I had a life coach, and all we talked about was, how do we better ourselves? How do we get the one percenters? How do I get playing for England? That was the conversation. And it was about, performing high level performance. So maybe people, from my experience of when I played for England and the British Asian community, any cricketer coming through, I would say, get yourself a life coach or a mentor, because it helps so much in delivering, high level performance. And I remember my first conversation I had with my mentor, who's obviously, unfortunately not here with us anymore, Dave Parsu. He asked me the question, he goes, "What's the equation of life?" And I said, "I don't know, 50% physical, 50% mental." He goes, "No, 90% mental and 10% physical. You've got to be mentally strong, to perform well." And that's what we worked on. We worked on, how do I get myself mentally strong to perform really well? So for me, I just very lucky I didn't experience anything like that.
Monty Panesar, thank you so much for taking the time out, like I said, to talk to us. And hopefully, we've already heard this, and you can see the difference that this is already making. But hopefully, it's not just tokenism or just talk that we've seen in the past, but real action is taken against racism in cricket. Thank you so much, Monty, and we wish you all the very best. Thanks again.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for having me on the show.
Well, that was Monty Panesar talking about his perspective on racism in English cricket. He was lucky. He says he wasn't in any way harassed racially in England. But Azeem Rafiq wasn't so lucky. And after that harrowing testimony, hopefully, we've already seen some heads being rolled in Yorkshire cricket. ECB has also reprimanded players like Jack Brooks. So hopefully there'll be more, but that's it from us. Goodbye. Thanks for watching.